The endless void of space stretched before Melissa as she stared out the small window of her escape pod. The emergency lights cast a red glow across her face, highlighting the small cut on her forehead. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional beep from the life support system. It had been 3 days since the research vessel Horizon had exploded. Melissa still saw the flames in her dreams, still heard the screams of her colleagues as they scrambled for the escape pods. She was the only one who made it out. Only her pod had launched successfully before the secondary explosion destroyed everything. Melissa checked the oxygen levels again. 72 hours remaining, the emergency beacon continued to pulse, sending its signal into the darkness. Would anyone find her? Would anyone even be looking? The Horizon had been on a classified mission, studying anomalies at the edge of charted space. She rummaged through the emergency supplies, taking inventory for the 10th time. Food. Packs good for 2 weeks. Water recycler functioning properly. Medical kit intact. Her service pistol safely secured in its holster. She touched the small photo tucked into her breast pocket, the smiling faces of her parents back on Earth. They probably didn't even know she was missing. Yet sleep came in restless bursts. Melissa would drift off only to jerk awake at phantom sounds, imagining the creaking of the pod was someone coming to rescue her. The stars remained unchanging, indifferent to her. Plight on the 5th day, something changed. Melissa was half asleep when a shadow passed over the window. She blinked, thinking it was a dream. But no, something large had definitely moved between her pod and the distant stars. She pressed her face against the cold glass, straining to see. There it was, a ship unlike anything in the human fleet. Its hull seemed to ripple with colors that shouldn't exist in space, shifting and flowing like liquid metal. No visible thrusters, no recognizable design elements. It moved with impossible grace for something so large. Melissa's heart raced. Was this rescue or something worse? The ship drew closer now, almost alongside her tiny pod. She reached for her pistol, gripping it tightly. The emergency protocols were clear, in cases of unknown contact, but they never really expected anyone to follow them. Not out here. Not when the alternative was certain death. The comm system crackled to life, startling her so badly she nearly dropped the gun. A voice came through unlike anything human. The sounds were musical, almost like singing, but with a structure that suggested language Melissa couldn't understand a word. She pressed the transmit button. Hello. This is Specialist Melissa Carter of the Earth Alliance research vessel. Horizon, I am in distress and require assistance. The musical voice responded immediately, more structured this time. The pod's computer attempted to translate, but could only manage disconnected words. Human, female, safe. Come, the massive ship extended, what appeared to be a docking tube. It moved like a living thing reaching for her pod. Melissa had seconds to decide, stay in her failing pod or risk whatever waited on the alien vessel. She checked her gun, made sure it was charged, tucked the photo of her family more securely into her pocket, and grabbed the emergency pack. The alien ship might mean death, but staying definitely did. The docking tube connected with a soft thud. The pod's airlock cycled, automatically recognizing a pressurized environment. A green light indicated breathable atmosphere. Melissa took a deep breath and opened the hatch. The corridor beyond seemed alive. Surfaces pulsed with soft blue light. The walls themselves appeared to breathe subtle movements that might have been machinery or might have been something else entirely. The air smelled strange, like cinnamon and ozone. A pleasant smell, but definitely not human. She stepped through, pistol held cautiously at her side. The gravity felt normal, perhaps, slightly lighter than Earth standard. The corridor curved ahead, leading deeper into the ship. A figure waited at the curve, tall at least 7 feet, with a slender build and skin that shimmered with the same flowing colors as the ship's exterior. The being had 4 arms arranged symmetrically. The lower set rested at its sides, while the upper pair was held in what might have been a greeting posture. The face was the most human thing about the creature. Large almond-shaped eyes dominated the features, There was no visible nose, just small ridges where one might expect nostrils. The mouth was small and delicate. The head was hairless with elongated ears that tapered to points. Despite the alien features, Melissa realized she was looking at a female. The being had curves and proportions that somehow translated across species. The alien wore what appeared to be a form-fitting uniform, though it seemed to flow and shift like the skin beneath. The alien's mouth moved, and that musical language flowed. Forth, Melissa shook her head, pointing to her ears. "I don't understand." The alien tilted her head, studying Melissa with those enormous eyes. Then she touched her chest with one of her upper arms and said a single word. Melissa understood. This was a name. She mimicked the gesture, touching her own chest. Melissa repeated the name, her pronunciation adding musical notes that made it sound like a short melody. Extended one of her lower arms in a graceful gesture. Melissa hesitated, then nodded, tucking her gun into its holster but keeping the safety off. She followed deeper into the ship. The vessel was enormous, much larger than it had appeared from outside. Doorways opened as they approached, closing after they passed through. The architecture had no straight lines, everything curved and flowed organically. Melissa tried to memorize the route but soon became disoriented. Other aliens passed them in the corridors. Most resembled though with subtle variations in height, coloring, and features. They all paused to stare at Melissa with undisguised curiosity. Some made musical sounds to each other that Melissa suspected were comments about her. Led her to a circular room with a view of space that made the windows of her escape pod seem like tiny portholes. The stars stretched out before them, unfiltered by any visible barrier. The room contained what appeared to be furniture, though the shapes were odd, and everything seemed to hover slightly above the floor. Gestured to the stars and said Zilarian Empire. Melissa nodded, understanding. This was the name of their civilization, or perhaps their territory. Continued speaking slowly, as if hoping Melissa would understand. We travel. We observe. We collect. Melissa felt a chill run up her spine. Was she being collected like a specimen? Seemed to sense her discomfort and added, "Humans, interesting species with potential. Are there others like me here?" Melissa asked, hope and fear mixing in equal measure. Made a gesture with her lower arms. First human on this vessel. First contact was supposed to be different. Diplomatic. Your ship distressed, changed plans. Melissa tried to understand. So this wasn't planned. You rescued me by accident, communication difficult. Seemed frustrated. Our translator incomplete. You sleep now. Later. Better talk. A door opened, revealing a small room with what appeared to be a bed, though it was shaped oddly and seemed to hover above the floor like the furniture in the main room. Melissa hesitated. She was exhausted, but the thought of sleeping in an alien environment made her nervous. Rest safe, said with another almost smile. Food soon adapt. Translator. Too tired to argue further, Melissa entered the room. The door closed silently. Behind her, she checked the room for any obvious dangers, but found none. The bed, whatever it was made of, felt surprisingly comfortable. She placed her gun under the strange pillow and was asleep within minutes. She dreamed of stars and strange worlds, of beings with 4 arms and ships that shimmered like oil on water. She dreamed of Earth and her family, wondering if she would ever see them again. When she woke, the quality of light in the room had changed. Sat in a corner watching her. Alien's features seemed less shocking now, somehow easier for Melissa's human brain to process better. Now asked. Her speech seemed clearer. The translator must have been working while Melissa slept. Yes. Thank you for rescuing me, Melissa said, sitting up. Not rescue, corrected. Collection. You are specimen valuable. Melissa felt cold dread spread through her specimen. She subtly moved her hand toward her pillow, where her gun lay hidden. Tilted her head. Study. Learn from you. Human biology. Fascinating. Human culture more so. Solarian science needs humans, so I'm a prisoner. Melissa asked, her fingers touching the cool metal of her pistol. Made a sound like chimes in wind. Not prisoner, guest researcher. Perhaps ambassador if suitable. Melissa wasn't. Sure, she believed the alien. But what choice did she have millions of light years from home on a ship full of creatures she knew nothing about? You are hungry, Kay stated, rather than asked. Follow. Food safe for humans. Melissa's stomach growled on cue. She realized she hadn't eaten in nearly 24 hours. The emergency rations in her pod had been bland and barely sufficient. She nodded and followed Kay out of the room, leaving her gun hidden under the pillow. She could always come back for it. The food looked strange but smelled delicious. Kay explained that the Zellarians had studied human physiology extensively enough to synthesize appropriate nutrition. The meal consisted of something resembling fruit-colored deep purple, and what might have been some kind of grain. The flavors were unlike anything on Earth, but not unpleasant as they ate. Kay explained more about the Zellarians. They were explorers, scientists, and collectors of knowledge. They had been observing Earth for over a century, studying humans from afar. Official first contact had been planned for the next decade, but Melissa's emergency had accelerated their timeline. The testing chamber was a perfect sphere. The walls, floor, and ceiling were indistinguishable from each other all the same. Pearly white material that seemed to glow from within. As Melissa stepped inside, the doorway disappeared seamlessly into the wall, leaving her alone in the featureless space. Melissa turned slowly, taking in her surroundings. There were no visible controls, interfaces, or even seams in the surface. Greetings, human female, a voice said from everywhere and nowhere. The chamber itself seemed to be speaking. The first trial will evaluate your cognitive functions, problem-solving abilities, and knowledge base. Melissa squared her shoulders. I'm ready. The air in front of her shimmered, and a three-dimensional projection appeared. Complex symbols and shapes hovered before her eyes, shifting and rearranging themselves. This is a basic pattern recognition test, the voice explained. Complete the sequence. Melissa studied the symbols. They weren't like anything she'd seen before, but she could discern a logic to their arrangement. She reached out hesitantly and was surprised when her fingers made contact with the projection. She could move the symbols, rearranging them. She placed what she believed was the correct symbol in the empty space. Correct, the voice said. More tests followed. Each more complex than the last, mathematical problems in base systems she had never encountered. Puzzles requiring spatial reasoning, language patterns, logic problems. Some she solved easily. Others took concentrated effort. A few seemed impossible, though she tried her best. After what felt like hours, the projections vanished. Cognitive assessment complete, the voice announced. Results above baseline expectations for species. Particularly strong. Performance in adaptive reasoning and linguistic pattern recognition. Is that good? Melissa asked. It is neither good nor bad. The voice replied. It is data. The second portion of the trial begins now. The white walls of the chamber suddenly transformed. The entire room became a projection of what appeared to be an alien cityscape. The buildings were tall and spindly, with organic flowing forms reminiscent of the Zellarian ship. Creatures of various species moved through the streets. Some resembled Kay and her people. Others were completely different forms. Melissa had never imagined. You will now observe a series of social interactions, the voice explained. After each scenario, you will be asked to interpret the emotional and social dynamics. At play, Melissa watched as a scene unfolded before her. Two Zellarians appeared to be in conflict, their musical speech rising in volume, their forearms moving in agitated patterns. A third Zellarian intervened, placing themselves between the arguing pair. What is occurring in this interaction? The voice asked. Melissa thought carefully. It's some kind of dispute. The third individual appears to be mediating, trying to resolve the conflict. And what emotions are being displayed? Anger, frustration by the first two concern perhaps authority from the third, Melissa said. Though it's difficult for me to read Zellarian emotions precisely. Accurate within acceptable parameters, the voice stated. More scenarios played out, some involving only Zellarians, others showing interactions between different species. Melissa did her best to interpret the social dynamics at work. Though alien in form, the basic emotions seemed somewhat universal. conflict, cooperation, dominance, submission, joy, sorrow. After numerous scenarios, the projections faded, returning the chamber to its white state. Social intelligence assessment complete. Results indicate high empathic capacity and cross-species. Adaptive interpretation abilities. Melissa felt a small surge of pride, though. She wasn't sure if that was the appropriate response. Is there more final component of Trial 1? The voice said. A projection appeared of Earth rotating slowly. The blue and green planet looked small and vulnerable from this perspective. Your species faces many challenges, some self-imposed, some natural. What do you consider the greatest threat to human survival? Melissa was caught off guard by the question. This wasn't a puzzle or an observation, but a philosophical query. She thought carefully. I had been asked this question before meeting the Zilarians. I might have said climate change, nuclear war, or artificial intelligence, she began. But now I see that humanity faces a greater challenge. Our isolation, our ignorance of the larger universe, and our place in it. We make decisions believing we are alone when in fact we are part of a galactic community. Whether we know it or not. Interesting perspective, the voice commented. Would you consider alien species a threat to humanity? Some might be, Melissa acknowledged, just as some human groups are threats to others. But isolation is a greater threat than engagement. To hide from the universe is to stagnate and eventually perish. I believe humanity must join the galactic community to survive and thrive, though the transition will be difficult. The projection of Earth disappeared. Trial 1 concluded. Proceed to recovery chamber for biological restoration. A doorway appeared in the wall. Melissa stepped through into a smaller room with what appeared to be a reclining chair. Kay waited there. Performance impressive, Kay said. Human adaptability confirmed. Melissa was exhausted mentally and physically. How did I do? Really, Kay made the chiming sound Melissa now recognized as laughter standards. Different human baseline unknown. Comparison difficult but counsel interested, discussions ongoing. Melissa sank into the chair. It molded itself to her body comfortably. Rest now, Kay said. Next trial, after recovery. Melissa must have fallen asleep because she woke with a start. The room was different. Kay was gone. She sat up quickly, taking in her surroundings. This chamber was smaller with blue-tinted walls. A single doorway stood open. Trial 2 begins, the now familiar voice announced. Please proceed, Melissa. Stepped through the doorway and found herself in what appeared to be a medical facility. Solarian instruments and equipment lined the walls. A table in the center held what looked like a patient, though the species was unlike any she had seen before. Small, about the size of a human child with 6 limbs and iridescent skin that pulsed with light. The creature appeared to be in distress, its breathing labored, its limbs twitching sporadically. This being requires medical assistance, the voice explained. You must determine the problem and apply treatment. Melissa approached cautiously. I'm not a doctor. I have basic first aid training for humans, but I know nothing about alien physiology. The trial does not test medical knowledge, the voice replied. It tests compassion, judgment, and ethical decision-making. Several treatment options are available. A panel on the wall illuminated, showing 3 distinct medical devices, each labeled with symbols. Melissa didn't understand. Melissa looked from the suffering creature to the devices. How am I supposed to choose? You have access to information, the voice said. A console near the table activated, showing what appeared to be biological readings and data. Melissa studied the console. Though she couldn't read the language, the displays showed patterns she recognized from human medical equipment. Heart rate, or its equivalent, was elevated. Body temperature rising. Various indicators flashing in what she assumed were warning colors. She turned to the 3 devices. Studying them without understanding the symbols, she had to rely on the design and intuition. Each looked capable of delivering some kind of treatment, but which was appropriate. Melissa turned back to the console, looking for more clues. A pattern caught her eye. A rhythmic fluctuation that seemed to correspond with the creature's breathing. She approached the creature carefully. Hello, she said softly. I want to help you. Can you understand me? The creature made a soft, trilling sound, its eyes focusing on her face. Melissa noticed that when she spoke, the creature's breathing seemed to ease slightly. She continued talking in a calm, gentle voice and observed the monitors. The readings stabilized somewhat. The creature's distress appeared to decrease. He returned to the 3 devices, studying them again. One seemed designed to deliver something like medication. Another appeared to be a surgical tool. The third was less obvious in its function, with a design that reminded her of neural interfaces she'd seen in human medical facilities. She looked back at the creature. Its breathing had worsened again when she'd stopped talking. The pattern on the monitor showed increasing disruption. Melissa had an idea. She began humming a simple melody, watching the monitors. As she suspected, the creature responded. The pattern on the screen shifted, coming into alignment with her tune. The creature's breathing eased. She approached the 3rd device, the one that resembled a neural interface. It had controls that included what looked like frequency adjustments. She carefully set the device to match the rhythm of her humming, then gently applied it to the creature. The effect was immediate. The creature's breathing normalized. Its color stabilized. The monitors showed improving readings. The being made a trilling sound that seemed almost like gratitude assessment. Complete, the voice announced. You have successfully diagnosed and treated a neurological disruption in the Maloney species. Their neural patterns require harmonic stabilization during developmental phases. This treatment is non-invasive and appropriate. The creature and medical equipment vanished. Revealing the empty chamber again, Melissa blinked. Did I just treat a hologram? The simulation was based on actual Maloney physiology, the voice explained. Your approach demonstrated several important qualities. Observation before action, attempt at communication, non-invasive intervention, recognition of patterns across species. A new doorway appeared, this one leading to what appeared to be a garden. Actual plants grew in soil with water features and stone paths. Days passed while the council deliberated. Melissa continued her work on the translation project, making significant progress. The Zalarian language was beginning to make sense to her, the musical tones and patterns revealing layers of meaning that flat human languages lacked. She found herself thinking differently as she learned to express concepts in Zalarian terms. Kay visited regularly, checking on her progress, answering questions about Zalarian culture and technology. The alien woman seemed genuinely interested in human perspectives, often asking Melissa to explain Earth concepts and customs. During one such session, Melissa gathered her courage to ask the question that had been bothering her. Kay, why did the Zalarians really bring me here? The tests, the translation project. It all seems like there's a greater purpose. Kay was quiet for a moment, her large eyes studying Melissa. Truth complex. She finally said, universe changing, balance of power shifting, new species emerging, old species, fading. Humans have potential. Potential dangerous if misdirected. Dangerous to who? Kay made a gesture encompassing everything. To selves, to others, to balance, human technology, advancing quickly. Human aggression also strong. Without guidance, without context, humans may make wrong choices. Choices with consequences. Melissa frowned. We're not children. We can make our own decisions. Kay made the chiming laugh. All species think this. All species make mistakes. Some mistakes cannot be undone. What kind of mistakes? Melissa pressed. Kay seemed to consider how much to reveal. Stars dying, she said finally. Not natural death, weapons technology, energy manipulation, entire systems destroyed. Melissa felt cold. Are you saying there are species out there with weapons that can destroy stars? Many species have capacity, Kay confirmed. Few have used such weapons. Consequences too great. But knowledge exists, spreads power, tempts. Zalarians preserve knowledge but restrict dangerous technologies. Council of Species maintains balance, peace through strength, shared wisdom. So the Zalarians are some kind of galactic peacekeepers, not peacekeepers. Kay corrected. Knowledge keepers, preservers, guides when needed, and humans need guidance. Is that it? Kay tilted her head. Humans stand at crossroads, technology advancing rapidly. Understanding of consequences not complete. Melissa wanted to argue to defend humanity, but she knew Kay had a point. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times with nuclear weapons, and that was just the beginning of their technological development. What might they do with even more powerful technologies? Still, she couldn't accept the idea of humans being guided like children. We need information. Kay. Not control. Not manipulation. If there's danger out there, we deserve to know about it, so we can make informed choices. Kay seemed pleased by this response. Information exchange, purpose of mission. Your role, potential bridge between species. Before Melissa could ask more questions, the door opened. A Zalarian she hadn't seen before entered and spoke to Kay in their language. Kay turned to Melissa. Council summons. Both humans required decision. Made Melissa's heart raced as she followed Kay through the corridors of the ship. Nate joined them along the way, escorted by another Zalarian. He gave Melissa a small nod of acknowledgement, but they couldn't speak. The council chamber was arranged differently this time. The 9 council members still sat in their semicircular arrangement, but now there were chairs for Melissa and Nate in the center of the room. They sat side by side facing the council. The first council member spoke the translator, rendering their musical speech into English. Humans, we have evaluated your performance in the trials. We have studied your responses, your decisions, your values. We have compared them to our understanding of human civilization based on centuries of observation. The council member paused, allowing another to continue. We find potential in your species, great potential for good, for growth, for wisdom, but also potential for destruction, for chaos. We stand at decision point. First contact with Earth, immediate or delayed. Humans ready for galactic community or requiring more development. Melissa and Nate exchanged glances. This was bigger than either of them had imagined. Their performance might determine humanity's place in the universe. The first council member spoke again. Normally, decision would be clear. Observation, continue. Species development, natural path interference minimal. But new factors emerge. Universe changing. Power. Shifting. Other species watching Earth. Decisions required. What other species are watching Earth? Nate asked, speaking for the first time. Many council member replied. Some, peaceful, curious like Zalarians. Others not peaceful. Not curious, predatory, expansionist Earth resources. Valuable human genetic material. Adaptable territory. Strategic. Melissa felt a chill run down her spine. You mean there's a threat to Earth? Not immediate, first counselor said. But growing isolation no longer protects Earth. Technology detectable signals sent into space for centuries. Earth location known to many. So what have you decided? Melissa asked. Council proposes alliance, the counselor announced. Formal contact with Earth governments. Scientific exchange. Cultural exchange. Limited technology sharing. Defense cooperation. Nate leaned forward. What kind of defense protection protocols? Second counselor explained. Early warning systems. Diplomatic. Inclusion in Council of Species recognition of Earth. Sovereignty and development rights. And what do you want in return? Melissa asked suspiciously. Cooperation. Third counselor said. Shared knowledge. Research, collaboration. Human perspective, valuable. Different from other council species. Cultural exchange enriches all. But there must be something specific you want from us. Nate pressed. Earth doesn't have technology or resources you don't already have. Fourth counselor spoke. Human adaptability valuable. Human creativity. Problem-solving unique among known species. Humans find solutions others cannot see, paths others cannot walk. Is that why you've been studying us? Melissa asked. To understand how we think. Partial reason. Fifth counselor confirmed. Other. Reason more complex human genetic structure. Unusual. Potential for advancement, accelerated evolution possible under right conditions. Melissa remembered what Kay had said about her own genetic structure being changed by radiation from the ship explosion. Your collection of humans, it's not just about studying us, is it? It's about breeding us. Selective evolution? The council members shifted uncomfortably. The translation device struggled to keep up with their rapid musical exchanges. Not breeding sixth, counselor clarified after the discussion. Guided development. Potential unlocking natural human evolution, but accelerated. That sounds like eugenics to me. Nate said, his voice hard. Humans have a dark history with that concept. We are aware, seventh counselor, said human history studied extensively. Zilarian approach different. No harm. No force. Natural potential enhanced only. Melissa wasn't convinced. But before she could argue further, the first counselor raised all four hands for silence. Decision made. Council offers alliance with Earth humans Melissa Carter and Nate Wilson to serve as ambassadors return to Earth with Zilarian delegation. Formal contact, established technology exchange begins. Defense protocols implemented. Melissa and Nate looked at each other in shock. They were going home and they were bringing aliens with them. How soon? Melissa asked. Preparations require 1 Earth month. Counselor replied. Ship readied. Protocols established. Contact procedures finalized. 1 month. Nate repeated. 1 month and we go home with us, Kay added. Stepping forward from her position along the wall, council appoints me as primary contact ambassador to humans. My study of human language culture most extensive. Melissa felt a strange mix of emotions, relief at going home, anxiety about what that would mean, fear about how Earth would react to the Zilarians, doubt about whether this was the right course. What if Earth rejects the alliance? Melissa asked. What if our leaders refuse contact? Unfortunate eighth. Counselor said protection more difficult without cooperation. But choice respected. Earth sovereignty. Recognized Zilarians not impose human development path. Self-determined always. The meeting concluded with details of the preparation process. Kay would work with both Melissa and Nate to prepare them for their roles as intermediaries. They would need to understand Zilarian protocols, technology, and expectations. They would help the Zilarians understand how best to approach Earth governments. As they left the council chamber, Nate pulled Melissa aside while their Zilarian escorts waited at a distance. Do you trust them? He whispered. Melissa considered the question. I trust Kay, at least as much as I can trust someone so alien. And what choice? Do we have the Zilarians know about Earth already? If they wanted to harm us, they could have done so long ago. Nate didn't look convinced. I don't like being forced into this ambassador role. We're military and research personnel, not diplomats. We're the only humans they have, Melissa pointed out. And we've passed their tests, whatever those were really measuring. We have a chance to shape first contact to make it peaceful. Productive. Isn't that better than the alternatives? Nate sighed. I suppose you're right. But we need to be careful. We need to prepare Earth somehow. We can't just show up in orbit with an alien ship and expect everything to go smoothly. Melissa nodded. He had a point. Earth would panic if a massive alien vessel suddenly appeared. In orbit, there would be fear, chaos, possibly violence. I have an idea, she said. We need to speak to the council again. The next day they presented their proposal to the council. Earth needed preparation before the Zilarian ship arrived. Melissa and Nate should be returned first in a small craft, perhaps one of their own recovered vessels. The research center was unlike anything Melissa could have imagined. The massive chamber stretched further than she could see, with environments of all kinds, separated by invisible barriers. Some contained lush forests, others barren deserts. Some had atmospheres of swirling gas, while others appeared to be completely underwater. Most shocking of all were the inhabitants. Other specimens turned out to be a vast collection of life forms from across the galaxy. Each contained in environments designed to mimic their homeworlds. Some were clearly intelligent, moving with purpose, using tools, communicating with each other. Others seemed more like animals, though it was hard to tell with such alien life forms. Kay led Melissa along a path that floated between the environments, explaining as they went, the Zilarians had been collecting and studying species for thousands of years. Learning, preserving, cataloging the diversity of life in the universe. Is this a zoo? Melissa asked, unable to keep the horror from her voice. Kay considered this not zoo knowledge center, living library, museum of life. Whatever they called it, Melissa saw it for what it was, a collection of caged beings. Some might have comfortable cages, but they were cages nonetheless. This would be your place. Kay indicated a large habitat that looked remarkably like Earth, complete with trees, grass, and even what appeared to be a small lake. A cabin stood near the water with smoke rising from a chimney. It's beautiful, Melissa admitted, but still a cage. Kay considered this temporary. When study complete, return possible. Decision made by council, how long will that take? Kay made a gesture with her upper right arm, equivalent to 5 Earth years, perhaps less if cooperation excellent. 5 years, Melissa felt panic rising. 5 years in a zoo, being studied, poked and prodded like an animal. And that was only if this council decided to let her go. At all, Kay sensed her distress moved closer. Human females brave. Kay had observed many species, felt Melissa was exceptional even among humans. Something in her genetic structure was unique, valuable. Why me? There are billions of humans. Why take me? Kay touched Melissa's face with one slender finger. Your genetics special. Among humans, you are unique. Radiation exposure from your ship changed you. Improved you? What do you mean? Improved. Melissa stepped back. Kay's eyes seemed to glow. Your cells regenerate differently now. Your brain patterns show expansion. Your children would be advancement for human species. Melissa felt sick at the implication. Children. You want me to breed? Kay made that chiming laugh again. Not with other species. With suitable human male when found. You would be progenitor of new human stage. And if I refuse? Kay tilted her head. Refusal not expected but acceptable. Study still valuable with or without reproduction. Melissa looked around at the habitat, at the other specimens, at Kay standing there calmly discussing her future, as if she had no say in it. There must be another way, Melissa said. Some compromise. Kay considered this. Melissa could sense the alien was genuinely thinking, not dismissing her outright. You help with translation project. Kay finally said, improve communication between species. Share human knowledge. Reduce study time to 1 Earth year. 1 year still seemed like eternity, but better than 5. And maybe in that time she could find a way home, or at least contact Earth. I accept, Melissa said, knowing she had little choice. Kay seemed pleased. Humans. Adaptable, Kay said. This quality most interesting. Most valuable. They returned to the main part of the ship, where Kay showed Melissa to her new quarters. Not the habitat she had been shown, but a suite of rooms within the Zellarian living area. The message was clear. Melissa was not just a specimen, she was a research collaborator, at least for now. The rooms were comfortable, if strange by human standards. Everything had the same organic, flowing quality as the rest of the ship. The bed furniture, and even what passed for a bathroom, seemed alive, responsive to her presence and needs. Kay left her to rest, promising to return when the sleep cycle was complete. Whatever that meant, on a ship with no apparent day or night alone, Melissa explored her new home. The door was not locked. She discovered she could leave her rooms, though she suspected she couldn't go far without raising alarms. A desk-like structure held what appeared to be a computer interface with symbols that shifted and changed. As she watched, she touched the screen experimentally and it responded. A holographic display appeared, showing what must be the Zellarian language alongside what appeared to be English. The translation was rough but understandable. This must be the translation project Kay had mentioned. Melissa sat down and began to work. It was either that or dwell on her situation, which would only lead to despair. Besides, the sooner she improved their translation systems, the sooner she might be able to properly communicate her desire to return home. Hours passed as Melissa worked. The Zellarian language was complex, with musical tones that changed meaning subtly. She found herself becoming absorbed in the challenge. The interface was intuitive, learning from her corrections and suggestions. She was so focused she didn't notice when Kay returned. Progress good? Kay said, startling Melissa from her work. You should make noise when you enter. Melissa said. Her heart racing, Kay tilted her head. Apologies. Human customs. Different Zilarians sense presence naturally. No need for noise. Melissa sighed. It was going to be a long year. Kay moved closer, studying the work Melissa had done. Translation. Improving. Kay seemed pleased. Learned faster than expected. Melissa shrugged. I've always been good with languages. Though this is the first alien one I've worked with, obviously. Kay made a gesture that Melissa was coming to recognize as their version of a smile. Have question for you. Yes, study. Other humans possible. Melissa narrowed her eyes. You want to capture more humans, not capture. Kay corrected. Learn meet exchange knowledge. Human planet, much variety. Cultural, biological Zilarians. Curious, Melissa thought carefully before answering. Earth would not respond well to aliens abducting. Humans' formal contact diplomatic relations would be better. Kay considered this Earth government's aware of universe. Not officially know most humans believe we're alone in the universe, or at least, that we haven't met aliens yet. Melissa explained. There are some who believe in aliens, but they're often dismissed. Interesting, Kay said. This common with developing species. Fear of unknown, denial of greater universe. Not fear. Melissa corrected. Lack of evidence. Earth science requires. Proof. Kay made the chiming. Laugh proof. Abundant humans ignore governments, hide Zilarians observed many times. This was news to Melissa. You mean we've been visited before many times, Kay confirmed. Observation only. No contact, first contact plan, recent decision. Melissa felt a chill. What changed? Why decide to make contact now? Universe changing. Kay said simply, stars dying. New powers emerging. Humans need preparation. Protection. Perhaps. Protection from what? Melissa asked. Kay gestured broadly. Others. Not all species. Peaceful. Not all intentions. Good human potential, great vulnerability. Also great. Melissa wanted to ask more, but Kay changed the subject abruptly. Tomorrow meet council, share human perspective. Show progress. The council, Melissa repeated. They're the leaders. Kay tilted. Her head council guides, decides, studies, evaluates, questions. Will evaluate. You evaluate me for what? Kay made a complicated gesture with all four arms. Future role, possible ambassador, return to Earth or stay. Depends on council with that cryptic statement. Kay left Melissa alone with her thoughts. Melissa barely slept that night. Her mind raced with questions and possibilities. What did the Zilarians really want with humans? What role did they expect her to play? Who were these others? Kay had mentioned Sao. Next morning or whatever passed for morning on the ship. Kay arrived to escort her to the council chamber. Melissa had dressed in her uniform from the escape pod, now cleaned and repaired. It was the most official clothing she had, and she wanted to make a good impression. She might be a captive, but she was also representing humanity to these aliens. The council chamber was a vast space with a ceiling that seemed to show the actual stars outside the ship. 9 Zilarians sat in a semicircle, on raised platforms. They varied in size and coloration from Kay. Though they shared the same basic form, Kay led Melissa to the center of the room, then stepped back. Joining a group of other Zilarians along the wall, one of the council members spoke, the musical language flowing through the chamber. A translator device near Melissa rendered the words in somewhat stilted English. Human female, we observe you with interest. Your species shows remarkable adaptability and potential. Our studies of Earth indicate humans are at a crucial development stage. You stand at crossroads of evolution, technology advancing rapidly, social structures changing, biological diversity reducing. The counselor paused, allowing another to speak. Question before council. Is timing. Original plan observation for 50 more Earth years before contact. Your presence accelerates timeline. Decision required. Return you to Earth. Establish formal contact now or continue study in isolation. Melissa stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. How they perceived her might determine humanity's First impression honored counsel. She began, keeping her voice steady. I understand your interest in humanity. We are a complex species still growing and learning. We have our flaws but also great strengths. Our curiosity, our adaptability, our compassion. These are qualities we value. I believe formal contact would benefit both our species rather than continued study in isolation. Humanity is ready to join the galactic community, and I would be honored to help facilitate that contact. The small Zalarian vessel approached Earth silently, its advanced stealth technology rendering it invisible to human detection systems. Melissa stared at the view screen, her heart pounding as the blue and white planet grew larger. Her home. A place she had feared she might never see again. Nate stood beside her, his face solemn. Kay operated the ship's controls, her forearms moving with practiced efficiency. We will land at these coordinates, Kay said, displaying a map of what appeared to be a remote area in the southwestern United States, isolated enough for privacy, close enough to military and government facilities for quick response. Melissa nodded. The location had been carefully chosen after much discussion, a compromise between security and accessibility. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, Melissa felt a strange mix of emotions: joy at returning home, fear about what would happen next, pride at being part of something historic. Mixed with it all was an odd sense of loss. She had changed. During her time with the Zalarians, Earth was the same, but she was different. The ship touched down silently in a desert clearing surrounded by rock formations. The engines powered down. Kay activated the external sensors. Area secure. No human presence. Detected within 5-kilometer radius, she announced. This is it, Melissa said, taking a deep breath. Nate checked his uniform one last time, straightening insignia that had been carefully recreated by the Zalarians. Melissa wore her research uniform, similarly restored. Kay had chosen to wear what she explained was formal diplomatic attire for Zalarians, a flowing garment that shimmered with subtle colors and patterns. The airlock cycled and the door opened. Earth air rushed in. Hot, dry desert air. Melissa inhaled deeply, tears springing to her eyes at the familiar scent of her home planet. They stepped out onto Earth soil. The sun blazed overhead in a clear blue sky. Rocky outcroppings provided the only shade. Scrubby desert plants clung to life in the harsh environment. Kay paused at the doorway, her large eyes taking in the landscape. This is Earth, she said, her voice containing something like awe. First time seeing, not just observing from orbit. Melissa watched as the alien woman took her first steps on human soil. Kay moved cautiously, testing the gravity, which was slightly stronger than on the Zalarian ship. She examined everything with intense interest, touching a small cactus, feeling the texture of the soil. Looking up at the sky, Nate had already activated the secure communication device they had brought. It would connect to military channels using his authentication codes. Ready? He asked. Melissa nodded, though she wasn't sure she would ever truly be ready for what was about to happen. Nate activated the device. This is Captain Nate Wilson authentication code. Sierra Tango 47291 Emergency Contact Protocol Alpha. I am alive and returning from non-terrestrial contact, requesting secure communication with command. They waited. The device remained silent. Try again, Melissa suggested. Nate repeated the message. This time there was a response. The device crackled to life. This is Strategic Command. Please verify identity with secondary code. Nate provided additional authentication, explaining that he had been recovered from his scout ship by non-human entities and was now back on Earth with critical information. The response was immediate. Do not move, Captain Wilson. A recovery team has been dispatched to your location. ETA 15 minutes. Nate looked at Melissa and Kay. They would have expected his scout ship to be lost, possibly believing him dead. His sudden reappearance would trigger every protocol in the book. Now they waited. The Zalarian ship remained visible, its organic, flowing design clearly non-human. Kay stood calmly beside it, her alien form unmistakable. They had decided against hiding. Their appearance would be shocking, no matter when it happened. Better to be clear from the start. Melissa heard the helicopters. Before she saw them, 3 black military helicopters appeared over the horizon, approaching rapidly. They circled the landing site once before. 2 touched down. The third remained airborne, providing cover. Soldiers emerged, weapons ready. They formed a perimeter surrounding the ship, Melissa, Nate, and Kay. An officer stepped forward, his face a mask of professional control, though his eyes widened at the sight of Kay. Captain Wilson. The officer said. He wore the insignia of a colonel. Report. Sir, Nate said, snapping to attention. I was recovered by the Zolarians after the loss of my scout vessel. This is Specialist Melissa Carter of the research vessel. Horizon also recovered by the Zolarians. And this is Kay, Ambassador from the Zolarian Empire. We are here to establish preliminary contact prior to formal diplomatic relations. The colonel stared at Kay, his training barely containing his shock. This is your ambassador? Kay questioned. Kay stepped forward with remarkable poise. I represent Zolarian Council, she said, her translator rendering her musical speech into clear English. We come in peace with proposal for alliance. The colonel activated his comm unit. Sir, we have a first contact situation. Request immediate protocol. Sierra Echo 1 events. Moved quickly after that. They were escorted under heavy guard to a nearby military base. Melissa and Nate were separated for debriefing. Kay was taken to a secure facility designed for high-level diplomatic meetings. Hours of questioning followed. Melissa explained everything from the destruction of the Horizon to the Council's decision to establish formal contact. She provided data samples from the Zolarian ship, information about their technology, their social structure, their place in the galactic community. Her interviewers were skeptical at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. The data she provided, the precision of her account, and most of all the presence of Kay herself, convinced them that this was real. After nearly 24 hours of debriefing, Melissa was finally allowed to rest. She was given quarters on the base, comfortable but clearly under surveillance. She slept deeply, exhausted by the intensity of the return. She was awakened by a knock on her door. A uniformed officer stood outside. Specialist Carter. Your presence is requested in the briefing room. The president will be joining by secure video. Melissa, dressed quickly in clothes that had been provided for her, simple but professional attire. When she entered the briefing room, she found Nate already there, along with several high-ranking military officers and government officials. A large screen dominated one wall, currently showing the presidential seal. Kay entered, escorted by 2 officers. She nodded. To Melissa, her alien features somehow less shocking in the stark government facility than they had been in the desert. The screen activated, showing the president seated in what appeared to be the Situation Room. The most powerful person on Earth looked tired but composed. I have been briefed on the situation, the president began, and have reviewed the evidence provided by Captain Wilson and Specialist Carter. I have also had a preliminary conversation with Ambassador Kay. She paused. I am convinced that we are indeed facing first contact with a non-terrestrial intelligent species. There were murmurs around the room, though everyone had known this was coming. Hearing it stated officially by the president made it real. The question before us, the president continued, is how to proceed. Ambassador Kay has proposed formal diplomatic relations, an exchange of knowledge and technology, and eventual integration into what she describes as a galactic council of species. She has also warned of potential threats from other non-terrestrial entities. Kay stepped forward at a nod from the official leading the meeting. I speak for Zolarian Council. She said, Earth stands at crossroads. Isolation no longer option. Technology detected presence known by many species. Some peaceful, some not. Zolarians offer alliance, protection, knowledge exchange beneficial to both. The president leaned forward. What assurances can you offer that your intentions are peaceful? Your technology clearly surpasses ours. If you wish to conquer Earth, you could likely do so. Kay made the chiming laugh sound that Melissa had come to recognize. Conquest, inefficient; cooperation, more productive. Zolarians, not conquerors, knowledge seekers, preservers. And these other species you mentioned, the president pressed. How immediate is the threat they pose? Kay considered this threat not immediate. Years, perhaps decades. But growing Earth signals travel space. Transmission reveals location. Resources unique, life, abundant strategic position. Valuable. The meeting continued for hours. Kay answering questions with remarkable patience and clarity. Melissa and Nate providing context from their experiences aboard the Zilarian ship. Officials debating implications, making preliminary plans. Finally, the president spoke again. I will be consulting with other world leaders in the coming days. This situation affects all of humanity, not just one nation. Ambassador Kay has agreed to remain as our guest while these consultations take place. Captain Wilson and Specialist Carter will continue to serve as liaisons. The screen went dark. The meeting concluded. Melissa found herself escorting Kay back to her quarters. The alien woman seemed thoughtful. Human leaders cautious, she observed. This expected, yes, Melissa agreed. This is beyond anything we've experienced before. It will take time for people to adjust. Kay nodded. Time short, though others watching. Your transmissions detected long ago. Some already planning approaches. Zilarians arrived first by choice, others may come by force if allowed. Melissa felt a chill run down her spine. How much time do we have? Kay made a complex gesture with her forearms. Uncertain. Perhaps years. Perhaps less. Depends on many factors. Political shifts in other empires, technological advancements, resource needs.